an attempt to thematize the technological essence under the thinking of Heidegger in an Hegelian register through the juxtaposition of Heidegger's Gelassenheit, or letting be, and Hegel's thought of the absolute moment where the power of a specific nation embodies the most perfect heimat, or way of human beings being at home. In Heidegger, in Heidegger says the most perfect phenomenology, remembering Heidegger determines phenomenology as that way of research that has no specific domain. It's not like physics, it's not like history, but it's simply a method of investigating. He says perhaps the most perfect form of the physicist is the mystic. And so he quotes, but then he gives mysticism not the sense of somebody who simply takes for granted that God exists, which isn't to say necessarily naively, but he gives the mystic an exemplar in Angelius Silsius, who says, let me sort of transfer a little meaning here to this. I don't know if you could see actually in the video. Let me close it in the way that it's possible. There's these animals flitting about. So they flit about because they flit about, you could say. That would be, as it were, what's happening immediately. And then one could suppose, maybe if one began to demand to see things intuitionally in a biological register, one would see behavior of a certain kind instead. Or if one tried to see it in the terms of German idealism, one would see representations of a certain kind in the mental apparatus, as it were. But what Heidegger wants to say is what Angelius Celsius says about the rose blossoms because it blossoms, it has no why, brings us, as it were, to the most uninterpreted moment, the moment that's the most direct. And so he says that then these bugs flitting around over here are not in our mind, they're not representations, but it's simply he presents them as this within the manifold of the pronoun-bearing entity, which is Dasein. But then again, the pronoun-bearing Dasein, yeah, that's wrong actually. So it says it's as though the grammarians has to teach us that Dasein is pronoun-bearing. So actually, that's an exact way of looking at it. So already we have the situation, and then the grammarians teach us so that we're these pronoun-bearing entities where there's a who and a whom, and acted upon. And if you look at the specific schools of grammarians in the early Christian period, so the Alexandrian grammarians, for instance, who propounded the theory of the different persons, the first, second, and third persons, you see that there's specific content to this scientific type of theories. And so this is why I have this problem with, for instance, with Sein und Zeit, where people want to say, no, look, he obviously shows that he didn't read the book because his opinion is that when Heidegger says that there's an ordinary everyday way of time and it's contrasted with another way of time that he's trying to propound, then I say, well, no, I don't think necessarily that's what Heidegger's saying. I think instead, rather, what Heidegger's saying is the Aristotelian way of dealing with time has become the normal everyday way of time. And we take that as though for granted, even though it's not necessarily there in the most direct look at things. So taken like this, we have a different ground. This is what Heidegger's claim is that Hegel already assumes that there's some content, whereas Heidegger claims to be at a more, he says this is more of a less, Heidegger is already more interpretive, if you put it in, sort of treat interpretation as a negative thing over and above the raw phenomena. I would say further here, Heidegger sees all of this, and then he at the same time is still thinking Designfrage. Whereas for Hegel, as you see at the beginning of the logic, he takes for granted ousia, or property, or the available, the most direct interpretation, I think, comes from Strauss, because Strauss was somebody who learned how to speak English, but had the Muttersprache, the Prussian, German, and it says directly that what we're talking about, and he explains directly what we're talking about in these cases in a way that makes it more clear, and he says that ousia, or property, or etc., the most direct English word for that is availability, something that's available, so the house is available for use to the ones that the real estate owner has I said, here's the keys, or the real estate broker. This availability, and then this is the notion that Hegel has, having the being as an available concept tied up to the problem of the Socratic problem of I know that I don't know, implying that he knows something about being, and then he says, yeah, I know enough. So it's as though to say, I know enough about being to talk about it, to either deny, to give say something about it, and then he gives this account of the nothing and being coming together to form the process of becoming. But all the time he's taking for granted what the direct thing is under discussion. That's what Heidegger is trying to bring in, the direct thing, and he points to it a little bit with the it's extremely subtle. So he points to it a little bit, as I said, with the claim, as it were, the most direct form of phenomenology is mysticism in the specific in Julius Celsius, the rose has no why sense. We could understand that technically too. So, like Aristotle says, there's the I think it's on to on. I don't know what the Greek is exactly necessarily, but it's basically in English Latin, where we say the thing qua thing, or as it were, the something qua something. The something qua something is the predicate structure. The something qua something, which is basically, this is basically Aristotelian philosophy. That's Aristotle in the most mathematical form as a grammatical structure. So the something qua something means Aristotle's philosophy that I have to have a basis, the that it is, for the why or the what it is. The something qua something. This is a tree, and then the question is, why are we acting as though there are two different things, the fact and the value, the this and the tree. So taken that way, yeah, Heidegger still has another level of criticism, even past what he's calling, because when you say the phenomenon, you say this is the most neutral phenomenon, or this is the basic datum, you at the same time don't bring in the Designfrage.